doing with that water bottle? Oh, this is supposed to be a YouTube video. Sorry about that. I was almost making a video for my other channel. What's up, guys? Michael Ronn here with Author Level Up, helping you write world-class stories better and faster. And I create these videos because I believe that each of you has Stephen King level talent and you just need help unlocking it. So if you're new here and if you like these feisty writing tip videos, click that little bell to subscribe and to get notifications every time I have a new video. So in this video, we're talking about how to become a writer, how to write sex scenes that will make your readers hot. Before we do that, I want to let you know that today's video is sponsored by something different than the last video. And that is that I don't know if you guys know this, but I have another podcast. And that podcast is called Writing Tip of the Day. It is a crisp writing tip in just 2 to 3 minutes every Monday through Friday. And it's a great show. It's almost becoming more popular than my YouTube channel. And if you like the tips that I give here on this YouTube channel, you'll be able to take this with you wherever you go and listen to this podcast every day, Monday through Friday. And you can get that at authorlevelup.com/flash. You can listen on your podcast apps, wherever you like to listen to those. And it's even a flash briefing on an Amazon device that begins with an A. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to trigger people, but you can get it at authorlevelup.com/flash. Subscribe today. So, as we talk about sex scenes, gotta set the table here, or should I say make the bed. There's going to be a lot of terrible puns in this video, by the way. But anyway, most sex scenes are not in and out. It's not just something that you write and then you move on to the next thing. In Iowa, we have a gas station chain, and the chain, believe it or not, is called Come and Go. I can't make this up. Look it up. It's called Come and Go. That is not the approach you want to take with your sex scenes. You want to take some time, let them breathe. You got to be elaborate here, all right? And they're not quick jobs, as I said before. You don't want to just write it and then forget about it or not give it the time that it deserves. And they are not hard to write, right? Sex scenes are not hard to write. In fact, I heard a writer once, and it was a writer in our community, and I really wish that I could remember this person's name because I would give them full shout out. So if you know who I'm talking about, throw their name in the comments so that I can link to them. But they said something really insightful about sex scenes. They said, instead of thinking about sex scenes like sex scenes, think about sex scenes like fight scenes. Isn't that insightful? It's really, really interesting when you think about it like that, because sex in a story is conflict and release between two characters. And I've always thought that that was good advice and something that I have adopted in my own writing. So the book that we're going to talk about this week is a tiny, tiny little scene from this book that totally sparked my imagination and sparked this video. And this is a great little book. It's a cult classic. It's called Heart of the Ronin, Part 1 of the Ronin trilogy by Travis Hierman. And it is about I think a 17-year-old boy who lives in Japan. His parents die mysteriously. And it's a historical fiction story about him going on a path to become a samurai. And so it is your story of the wandering Ronin. And there's lots of really cool stuff. It's almost like a Japanese Western in many ways. And the scene that I saw in this story was very sensual. It was the hero making love to a female that he never thought he would see again. They both never thought they would see each other again. So it's kind of a hot lovemaking session. In the video description, I'll drop an affiliate link to where you can grab the book if you're interested. I'll talk real briefly about why I chose this scene. Now, I chose this scene because there were a few things that jumped out at me. The first was that it was a good sex scene written by a male author, told through the perspective of a male hero. Now, you guys, all my guys watching, I hate to tell you this, but guys, we just don't write realistic sex scenes a lot, and we get a lot of darts for it. And so I thought this was an interesting example of an author that did it right. Now, I always recommend that you read romance novels because those are the best way to learn how to write these types of scenes. Romance writers are the best in the world at this. They're really good at it. And so I recommend you read romance, but I thought it would be instructive and interesting to go off the beaten path and pick a non-romance example because I know that many of you don't write romance, and so it might be interesting to see how someone in your neck of the woods might approach this. And I also picked this scene because it was very easy to study. Now, I will include a link to another video by a fellow YouTuber, Lisa London. She's a best-selling romance author, and she talks about her approach to writing romance and sex scenes. And I think it would be really, really cool to watch this video and then watch her video so you can get different perspectives on this, because there are many, many different ways to write sex scenes. Now, a quick caveat here with sex scenes. They are amazingly contextual. So if it's two teenagers, the feel of the scene is going to be different than if it's a husband and wife. And that's going to be different than if it's a one-night stand. And it's going to be different in so many different situations. And it's important to keep that in mind as we move forward here. I have an example. And this example, as with all the examples I do for these nitty-gritty writing videos, I make them up really quickly. So I didn't do any character work here. What you're going to see really exists in a vacuum, and it might seem a little wooden, pun 100% intended, but just keep this in mind. Just pretend that this is a story of a sex scene between two characters that have had this tension, this romantic tension that is built up and built up and built up, and now it's finally being allowed to run its course. All right. And I'm not taking any examples from the book because, one, I don't have the permission to use that. But what I like to do when I look at stuff is I like to look at the technique that the writer used and then ask myself, what's the essence of what they're doing, right? Like, not copying anything that they're doing, but what is, if I broke this scene down into just a few key steps, what would those steps be? And then how could I play around with that and make that original and make it my own, right? So I've made up this example 100%. I literally haven't even read this book in like 4 years, so I don't even remember what is in the book. But I just remember the steps that the author took, okay? So step 1 is pick a key sense and layer it on thick. Brushing up close, he smelled her watery cologne, like so many rose petals on the surface of a bubble bath. He gasped as she pushed him down into soft silk sheets. Then he grabbed her, brought his lips to hers, and all he could taste was roses, tequila, and sweat as they rolled over each other. Now, don't laugh at my prose here, but I have highlighted the sensory details in red for your convenience. So I picked, for this example, the sense of smell. All right, so watery cologne, that's a smell, right? Rose petals on the surface of a bubble bath. When I think of bubble baths, I always think of the unique smell. That's just my personal thing. And then roses, tequila, and sweat. I think if you take all those together, you could make an argument that there's some smell there, right? So you pick a sense and you layer it on thick. You lead with a sense. That's what I like to call it. You lead with a certain sense, and that is the sense that you allow the reader to see through the character's eyes, or in this case, their nose, right? Step 2 is to come up for air, right? So you can't just layer it on and layer it on and layer it on and just keep having them touch each other and enjoy their bodies and all this. You've got to have a little bit of a break, right? Because readers need a little bit of breathing room. They gotta unbutton their shirts a little bit because it's starting to get a little hot. And so as we continue the prose, he paused. Was this really happening? Who knew that the two of them would go from hating each other's guts to rolling around together on the way to, he couldn't imagine anyone else in his arms right now. What is it? She asked. Are you having second thoughts? So here, I've got a little bit of action. I've got a little bit of getting inside the character's head, wondering if it's really happening, some opinion, and then I've got a little bit of dialogue, right? So nothing breaks up a good sex scene like a little bit of dialogue, right? So that's the second step, is to give the reader a little bit of a break. And then we're going to layer those senses in again. So it's almost like a whale. Whale comes up, gets a little bit of air, then goes down, 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 down. But then the whale has to come up again, and come up for some air. It's kind of like that, right? So we're layering in the senses again. This time, we're not choosing just one sense. We can just have a little bit of fun, mix and match to your heart's content. So I'm barely processing my first thoughts, he said, catching his breath. She straddled him. I'm supposed to work tonight. I don't exactly have all day, She leaned in for a gentle kiss on his cheek, and electricity surged across his face. He explored the small of her back, wrestled her belt off, then her jeans. He felt his own shirt slide off. The electricity burned and burned, and in a few seconds, it flowed down to his, woo! All right, and she startled. All right, so we're layering it in, and then we're coming up for air again. So we got some dialogue. Great way to break the tension a little bit. Wow, we're actually doing this, aren't we? She asked. We don't have to if you don't. But just like that, she slid him in, and they were following each other's rhythm. And that, my friends, leads to you know what comes next. The actual fun part. So the actual sex here. So we got a little boom boom, got some senses, got a little boom boom, got some dialogue, and of course we have our climax. You can fill in your imagination with that. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. You all know what we're talking about here, at least I hope. So all right, so then we have step 6, which is what I like to call the post-coital quiet. All right, this is those scenes in the movies where the characters have just done it, and then somebody lights up a cigarette. That's kind of what we're talking about here. It tends to be very quiet because you've just had something before that's extremely loud. Like if you could put a volume on a sex scene, it would be loud. Just like a fight scene, it would be loud, like volume all the way up. And you've got to turn the volume down now, right? You got some post-coital quiet. So let's read it. He lay, a sheet barely over him, counting cracks in the ceiling. She exhaled. She traced a fingernail down his chest and looked him in the eye. Why do you love me? She asked. She balled her fingers into a fist and punched him on the shoulder. Really? So, you do however you feel that you want to address that. But that, you can't, you have to release the tension somehow, right? And so then we have a fade to black. So I have 2 options here, 2 things that we can consider doing when we do this. The first is you could end it gracefully. Like in a romance novel, for example, this would be a fade to black. Or if we're talking about non-romance or romance where we want to drive the tension forward, we could end it with a turn of events in the story. So, cliche example, hero gets a phone call that the villain is destroying the city. So remember, we got to keep things moving forward. You don't want to just completely fade to black. You want to have something that segues into the rest of the story, right? So let's break this down and review. So step 1 is to pick a key sense and layer it in thick. Step 2, come up for air. Step 3, layer in more senses. Step 4, like a whale, remember, come up for air. Step 5, the actual sex, have fun with that. Step 6, post-coital quiet. And then step 7, fade to black or the end. That's really it if you think about a sex scene in this style, right? There's many other ways you can do it, but I've always thought that this is a really, really cool way to build some tension. We could also twist this around. We could do a quarter turn, right? So we can have a twist. So we could say, step 1, you pick a key sense and you layer it in thick. Step 2, you come up for air. Step 3, you layer in more senses. And step 4, frustration. Something happens that ruins the moment. Maybe one of them makes an offhand egghead comment that completely ends the session. Maybe there's a little bit of premature action going on, if you know what I mean. You use your imagination. We're writers, right? We can have some fun. And then you end it, right? Now, if we twist this again, do another quarter turn, we could, as step 1, pick a key sense and layer it in thick. And then step 2, climax for one of the parties. Kind of fun, right? And then step 3, fade to black. And then, next time, later in the book, you follow all 7 steps for a more gratifying experience. That, my friends, is something I've seen with sex scenes. Thought I'd like to pass it your way and hope you have fun with it. So just as a reminder, more tips coming your way. If you like this video, I've got my other podcast, Writing Tip of the Day. You can listen to that at authorlevelup.com/flash. I'd love to have you on board. And as I said before, it is growing and picking up steam. And one day it may even be more popular than Author Level Up. Who knows? So if I've intrigued you, got to go listen to it. As always, I appreciate everybody watching this video. Take care, stay safe, and I will talk to you next week.